morning. As an architect, I often look to history for inspiration when it comes to solving complex problems. And I can think of no better example than the Bauhaus, a school that revolutionized how we think about art and design. Right? They taught a total design ethos, a systems thinking. They taught simplicity, they taught ease of use, and they emphasized aesthetics as well as function. Those are some things we don't often think about when it comes to security solutions or security projects, is it? One of their most influential artists was Moholy Nagy, right? And he emphasized experimentation and the use of new technologies to expand the perspectives. Those are some great lessons learned, some great traits that we can take away as designers, as leaders of security in your organization. If we want to move at the speed of the cloud, we have to be thinking more about embracing new technologies, new ways of thinking, and experimentation. We can't be thinking about slow actions. We have to move faster. If I want to look for an example of architecting for resilience, I don't have to look further than my backyard. Right? And in the Netherlands, there was a project recently completed called Room for the River. And of course, the Netherlands is very famous for building high dikes to solve, to tackle flooding and high water, right? Building those high barriers. Many of you in your organizations are probably doing that today, or at least have done it in the past when it comes to your architecture. But the Room for the River project took a wholly different approach to how you think about architecting for resilience for the long term. Now, the river and the changing weather patterns and the complex weather systems that affect the Netherlands are complex. And the cyber threats that you face today are complex. They're not complicated, they're complex. They're fast moving, there's a lot of inversion of power that's going on. We have to think differently about how we react to be resilient. And instead of building high walls, they look for ways to look at the river as a system. How can we live with it? How can we deepen the trenches, create longer floodplains? And those are just the technical parts of it. There's a lot of aesthetic benefits that have come from that project. New ways of living, new types of agriculture, new places to live, houses on water and so forth, new types of barriers, right? We feel this will be resilience for the next 100 years. Right? So this is a great example of how to think about between the Bauhaus and the Room for the River. How do you think about architecting for resilience in your own organization? So you think we're ready? Does anybody think you're ready? Or are you cyber resilient today? Would anybody stand up and say that? I would doubt it. Right? But there's some really positive indicators that are going on. For one, this type of conference. Right? Years ago, these type of conferences, maybe in this area, didn't always happen. Now everybody's quite aware. When we visit an organization to advise on their security strategy, I don't always have to raise the alarm. The risk awareness is very high. And that happened over the years. In the financial sector and the government sector, they've been the most affected for the longest term. I was born in the government sector, or I should say born, but I grew up in the government sector when it comes to cyber. And we were always facing that most advanced threat. Same thing in the financial sector, facing that fraud, facing the more advanced cyber criminals. So the risk awareness has always been there. In the industrial sector, that probably happened with Stuxnet, maybe in 2010. And moving into the latest ones in black energy and all the ones that have affected the different power grid systems around the world. I don't need to name them because you most likely know them, right? So those attacks are happening. Those industries have all had their awakening moments. When it comes to other industries, I would say that attacks like NotPetya and Petya has moved very, very quickly, autonomously in some cases, through many different enterprises, taking down businesses, having a real effect on the money that businesses earn, right? Taking business down. So that cyber physical effect is really real. It's happening. Lost money. Hopefully we don't have lost lives as a result of things like this, right? But that's what we're all trying to protect. So I think that the risk awareness is high. When it comes to some of the institutions that we've put in place over the years, public-private partnerships as they might be called. One, No More Ransomware, which was a project formed by McAfee in conjunction with Europol and National Cybercrime Center in the Netherlands and a few other government agencies, Kaspersky as well. So great example of companies working together also. today, that project, which is hosted by AWS and is basically free, has saved over almost 35,000, has recovered almost 35,000 different systems and saving almost a real amount of money. We calculate about $10 million in real money saved by that project. So this is a really good example. The video I'm playing back here is from Operation Bakovia, which is an intelligence sharing or a cooperation, I should say, between cybersecurity companies, McAfee being one of them, and law enforcement agencies, being able to have a real effect on the cybercrime industry, because it is an industry. Right? And sometimes when I watch these type of videos and these type of things, I get reminded that there's a human behind the attackers. We're not after the bits and bytes. There is somebody behind there who has an intent, and he has a goal. Might be earning money, might be destruction, might be espionage, but he has a goal, and there's a person behind that. So the things like this are really working. They're having that effect. So let's take a look. I kind of compiled a few statistics from various sources. There's not really one research or industry analyst that gives you a resilience scorecard, but I picked out a few that might be relevant for the audience. Okay, looking at cybersecurity and privacy together. The talk on AI, which was fascinating, also brings up another challenge or another thought process about how we bring privacy into this discussion. Right? There's also other aspects of security that we have to think about, and security becomes more about not protecting the device or the system anymore, but instilling trust in what we see, the informations, the images, and so forth. But only a few organizations, only about less than 50%, have a policy that kind of combines those. Cloud security, and this is what the statistic means is that less than half of people, organizations surveyed in this particular research, feel confident that their public infrastructure, their public cloud infrastructure in particular, is secure. And you can see that's happening every day. Different kinds. The last breach in the Citibank, with exposing millions of different types of data, is evidence that we've got to move faster. We can't be doing the same sort of manual efforts for compliance checking that we have done in the past, periodic scanning of things. We have to automate how we assess our infrastructure, especially as it moves to the cloud. We have to get faster with that. Incident response. This really hits me in the heart a little bit, because my first job in cybersecurity was in a CERT, Security Emergency Response Team, or Computer Emergency Response Team as it was called. And it was very grassroots at that time. It was great because we had interfaces with different kinds of telcos, and we could see so much different kinds of attacks as they were going on. It was so exciting to see that, right? But that was over 20 years ago, and I've done a number of type of jobs in that space over the years. But still today, this is a survey from 2018. Again, less than half have a great or feel confident in their incident response capability. And I think this is where we can have a great influence on resilience. And we're going to hit a few key points later on about incident response and security operations to really help you. Whoa, big number, 72% threat intelligence. That's awesome. Well, let's take one step back. All right, 72% feel good, but when you get into the data and the things that they talked about in this particular survey, it was more that they got a lot of data. They just have information. They don't really have intelligence, they just got a lot of indicators. They got a lot of feeds. Maybe they're paying a lot of money for those feeds, right? But they don't know necessarily how to use them properly, how to integrate it into their architecture to where it can really have the outcome that they want. So great number, great. I'd say a lot of people are at what I call a foundation level of maturity when it comes to threat intel, government and financial sector as the leading edge, right? But there's a lot of room for improvement in the vast majority of enterprises today. And then this last one, security culture. Technical guys, they kind of cringe when it comes to culture. That's too soft. It's not soft, right? And I want to show you at the end of this how we're going to get a cultural recipe for success as it pertains to security operations. I really feel that this is a powerful weapon that we as leaders, because you all leaders, whether you're in a position or not, have an opportunity to grow your culture of security. Okay, so let's get into a few things, right? And again, my third lesson from history is about, okay, when I think about systems and architecture, this is one of the images that comes up. It may not come up for you, but it comes up for me. Eiffel Tower is beautiful, right? Architected to survive only 20 years, but has lasted over 130. 18,000 pieces of technology and steel and components are engineered to precision to work together. It grows and expands 7 inches, 13 inches every year. Anybody's security architecture today is that malleable, that adaptable, that precise? I don't think so, but we need to be thinking about how we get there. In fact, the architectural reality today is more like this, right? And this is the complexity that we're facing, right? And as it pertains to security operations, because I only have a few minutes in this talk to kind of hit one topic in particular, and I'm going to do security operations, so I'm going to take a look at a few of the myths that are perpetuating a problem in security operations, and one of those is called SOC in a box. And if anybody's here has mentioned that, please raise your hand. No, don't do that. I may have to come after you. No, but we've all heard it. We've all heard it in marketing terms and whatever, but it really perpetuates a problem. It says that, well, to be good, all I need is a piece of technology. I put everything into it, and it's magic, and it spits out the results. That's a problem. Another problem is called single pane of glass. Anybody heard that? I'm sure you've all heard that terminology before. Again, in all of the different marketing terms that are out there, all the things people get you excited about, thinking about how simplified security is, they say single pane of glass. And when it comes to security operations, that makes me cringe too. Really cringe, right? Because again, it says, all I need to do is look at this one thing and I have all the answers. When in actuality, when it comes to security operations, it's a mixture of tools. It's a mixture of processes and people that have to work together to get to the outcome, which is reducing your mean time to respond, getting faster, making faster decisions. So again, how do we make this an architecture come together that's going to help you make a faster decision, that's going to help you improve your business resilience overall? Let's take a look at a few examples. Okay, let's apply this systems thinking approach and look at, okay, what is the real architecture that you have to be building to have effective ops? Basically, incident response or threat hunting is the real outcomes there. One is the telemetry. And over time, the telemetry started off with security events, security information management systems. And the name implies the function, right? Well, I'm collecting security information and security events. But today, that telemetry is a lot different, right? You still have those things, those alarms, and they're getting better, right? Depending on the sensors and how well those sensors are tuned, or how well analytics intelligence is built into those sensors. But mainly, the information that we're getting is from NetFlow, massive amounts. We're talking petabytes of information. If you look at the Gartner survey on the next generation of SOC, as they call it, we're looking at petabytes of information. NetFlow data, cloud logs. Anybody working with AWS or Azure information stores, there's a lot of data there. Right? All kinds of cloud SaaS applications, CASB brokers producing different kinds of things, Yuba tools producing different kinds of alerts, or UEBA tools, I should say, endpoint tools producing a ton more. We used to just get events from endpoint. Now we get full traces of all kinds of activity, user activity, system activity, what have you. We're talking petabytes of data here as the telemetry. But still, people think about, they're missing that telemetry. They're missing the telemetry that helps them correlate intelligence. They're missing the telemetry that helps them get value out of some of the tools that they've already purchased. That's one of the most common things I hear is, I'm not getting value from my SOC. Most likely they haven't built the use cases that are built up with this telemetry. When it comes to threat intelligence, we heard about that. It's not just the data. We need to think about the context behind it. What type of attackers? How do I help use this to prioritize decision making? Analytics, okay? Again, oftentimes a panacea, right? When people hear AI and analytics, when it comes to security, they think panacea. Oh, I just need analytics and I'm good. Just like single pane of glass. I just need this one next tool and I'm good. Finally, I'm there. This is something you've got to apply throughout your whole architecture, throughout your prevention strategy, your detection strategy, and now into your investigative capability. Because all that petabytes of data, not a lot of humans are able to go through that data. We've got to apply more smarts, more context with intelligence, more capability, more automation with analytics to help you get through that to make a faster decision. Looking at automation, process automation, right? And a lot of times people, in security, automation is kind of scary sometimes, right? But we need to get over that. There are things that we can automate, data collection, playbooks. There are some safe automation things that we need to be doing to really speed up your response time. And then finally, I don't want to leave out the cultural piece, the people part. Because in my experience, this is what makes it go. When you have that right team together that's focused on one mission, you can really have a success. Okay, a couple areas where this strategy is applied in reality, and this is a detection response tool, and where we're thinking about how we don't just collect the data from the endpoint to help you with that capability. We're applying the analytics to the data that's collected to get down to that simple part. Remember the Bauhaus lesson, right? I want it to be simple. And investigations aren't simple, but we can make it, we need to incrementally improve that capability. So thinking about, I often see a demonstration from different places, and the demonstrator will go right to the tool, and he'll say, oh, I see an event. Oh, and that event, oh, that click over here, and I look at, and here's the result. And it's a mystery of how you get to from here to there. But it's not really a mystery. It's a series of questions that you should be asking about all that data. What sort of suspicious activities or processes are running? What sort of suspicious communications are happening? Have I ever seen that before? Now, that's difficult to do without automation and analytics working together to make that happen. So what we're trying to do is simplify this investigative process for our organizations by applying the intelligence and analytics to the data that we collect from endpoints or networks to get it down into questions and answers, right? Not events, not indicators of compromise, answers to questions. People understand, leaders understand answers to questions. I asked the question, I got it. Let me put those findings together to help me make a faster decision as to what systems are actually affected by this particular incident. You're not going to get through that petabytes of data doing the mysterious click and point to the answer. All of a sudden, I got there. Who knows how it is? But you've got to be thinking about investigative processes from a different point of view. Start asking, what are the questions that you need to ask? How can we build that into technology to simplify and get faster? That's one of the things that we're doing here. When it comes to threat intel aggregation, this is one of some of the projects that our architect team, which I'm proud to lead, is working on. How do we give our organizations enough intelligence and the context around that to where they can do more effective research? Right? And this is where it asks for those big organizations that are thinking about, okay, they understand they have data, but they need to make more sense of that data. Right? What are the attackers that are really targeting my industry or my company or my organization? And again, getting back towards making a decision versus just having a whole bunch of information to comb through. Right? So putting the data in front of an analyst to where you can do the research, interfacing this data into systems to where those systems can make faster, more contextually relevant decisions. And this is one of those areas where we've done some great pioneering design work, we'll say, right? And creating design patterns that allow you to integrate different kinds of intelligence systems easily, faster. Right? We call them design patterns. One of those is around threat intel systems. And we looked at that problem from a process point of view, and we said, okay, as an architecture builder and designer, we've got lots of components. I've got McAfee portfolio to work with. I've got partners. We've got all kinds of third-party systems that we have to put together. So one of those is threat intel platforms. So we looked at this and said, okay, well, from a process point of view, what do I do with intelligence? First, I've got to aggregate it. I've got to put it together. And then I've got to validate and put context behind that. Right, so there's a process that has to happen there. What do I do next? Well, I've got to get that data into investigative systems so they can make better decisions, and the processes that they're enforcing are going to go faster. And then I've got to get it into cyber defense tools where I can make a preventative decision at the right point in time, endpoint or network. So from a pattern point of view, collecting, validating, contextualizing your intelligence has to happen. That's where a lot of organizations are struggling today. So we found out that the different patterns help us integrate these tools faster, and we think about it from, okay, what data needs to go into security information management systems? What data does TIP need to make a faster hunting decision or to simplify some of the incident response processes that are going on there? So all those things are very important. So we call those design patterns. We've done a number of those in different areas where when you think about integrating different technologies together, that's where a lot of people are today. You've got to think about the process first. Where do I get that data? How do I aggregate it, validate it? And then where does it need to go? And what do those tools need? And in what time frame do they need? It determines the type of integration path that you take. Real-time messaging, API, or some other method. So it determines the way that you get that data out there. So we've done a lot of work in the space of intelligence design patterns, let's just say, to simplify the integration for organizations. So just wrapping up last two things here. One is, continuous testing. And in the organization that I was proud to lead a few years ago, we were fortunate to have what we call a red team. And a lot of organizations have that today, or they buy it as a service or what have you. And we called it, red teaming is, adversary emulations is probably a better term even, because this is where you simulate the attacker. And I always felt that the best way to test your security operations was to simulate these attacks, to test those. Okay, am I launching a real attack? Did I see that indicator? Do my rules work? Do my process work? And did I get there? And there's some great results I'll come to in a second with this cultural recipe for success, right? And the team that I led, I'll give you some great examples. One is we had that red team, we had that blue team, and it was the competitiveness that really made the team go further, right? At first they didn't like it, right? They didn't like having to lose all the time. The blue team lost a lot, right? They didn't like it, but they got better for it. We had 25% women on this team. This is in 2006, 2008 timeframe. 25% women doing incident response, threat hunting. Great mix of culture. We had a very multicultural organization. A lot of different parts of the world, different languages even being spoken in the organization. And finally, a lot of people had technical degrees. Everybody had some sort of degree, some sort of experience. But not everybody had an IT degree. Not everybody had a computer science degree. My best incident responder, best threat hunter, had a degree in philosophy. So think about that when you go for it. Thank you very much.